Hello, and welcome to our second installment here with our Foundations video. The last video you watched dealt specifically with different theories of democracy. This one is going to deal with foundations of American political thought. The focus is going to be on social contract theory and a brief explanation of how that and those ideas on social contracts had a big impact on American politics. As you can see here on the slide, we have a picture of the writing of the Declaration of Independence with Franklin, Adams, and Jefferson. The comment at the top, where all men are created equal, which was written by Jefferson and placed in the Declaration of Independence, is a milestone statement in terms of the creation of the United States. But it isn't something that is brand new. It is something that was derived from many or much of the political thinking of the age, right? The age of enlightenment, the time that our founding fathers lived and the time that they were greatly influenced by. So even though this is monumental in our history and it is a foundation document of our government, it is not absolutely new. We can go back in time, all the way back to the 1200s with King John and the Magna Carta as the first real instance of a social contract or the roots of a turnover of power from monarchies, from autocratic leadership, from a divine right into the hands of the people. Now, we're not necessarily talking about the hands of all people, but we are talking about a lessening or a sharing of power. You can see a continuation of these ideas throughout English history with the Petition of Rights and then followed by the English Bill of Rights. Alright, the Enlightenment was also known as the Age of Reason, and the time period there is between 1650 and right around 1800. And it's an important time for the development of democracy, and it really is the foundation of what would become or what is going to become modern democracy. It really established the idea that the world is best understood and viewed by observation and reason. And it really moves away from the idea of the mysteries of the church and religion and more into the idea of science. So it's a step forward. It harkens back and moves forward at the same time from some of the classical philosophies and philosophers. All right. Political philosophers of this time period are really going to take a good look at human behavior. They're going to take a look at how humans act. And they're going to create theories that are going to center around why, the reasons behind why we need, why we gravitate towards, and how we end up with the governments that we create. The first man we're going to talk about here is Thomas Hobbes, and he's going to be the earliest of the political philosophers we're going to touch on. And as you can see here from the picture, he's quite a fine-looking man. His picture is there on your right. To the left there is the cover of his book, Leviathan. And on that cover, he has a picture of the Leviathan, which is going to be a representation of a country's leadership. He was a big proponent of a powerful king or powerful central leader, and that's going to make him a little bit different from the other philosophers that we're going to talk about. But there are some ideas that Hobbes is going to put across that are central to and kind of form a genesis for some later ideas. All right, Hobbes, of course, wrote Leviathan in 1651, and a couple of the main ideas there that you'll find in Hobbes's political idea or thought is that people, in terms of their state of nature or how they live, are in a constant state of conflict or war. And this is going to be very different from the other philosophers we're going to touch on. People's main focus is going to be simply on survival, self-preservation, and protection of their own self-interests. He talks about how government is absolutely necessary and is really the only way to give people peace and security, and there has to be a contract between government and the people, but it's an ironclad contract, okay? And once people turn it over, they can't have it back. The trade-off for this security is a surrender of those natural rights. All right, when we talk about natural rights, they're going to be further discussed by the next man we're going to talk about, Locke, but those are the rights that you have when you were born. They're innate in human beings. Our next philosopher is John Locke. Yeah, and we're talking about the John Locke on the left. For those of you who watch the show Lost, there's also a John Locke there on the right. Locke wrote the two treatises on government, he rejected the divine rule of kings. So he was going to move away from Hobbes. So what we're going to see here is you're going to set up some subtle similarities, but also some stark differences on the ideas of Hobbes and Locke. It's very interesting. If you would like to hint, take a little peek at the backgrounds or the biographies of these two men, the history that surrounds their upbringing, and the time periods that they lived, you can really see how those impact their worldviews and their political philosophy. So something you might want to take a look at. Locke's idea is that governments were created among naturally free people, and the social contract, the turnover of your innate natural rights, or at least some of those rights, over to the government, is an essential part of his ideas or his system. And it's grounded in the idea of the consent of the governed, where the people are freely handing over this power to their leaders in order to rule. He believed the government had to act or must act in a fair, or at least a genuine manner of being good to all of its people, or the people had the power to rebel and end that government. And this is the right to rebellion. He focused on three main natural rights: the right to life, liberty, and property. And you're going to see the change there between property and the pursuit of happiness in terms of the Declaration of Independence, where you see Jefferson creating a pretty impressive piece of propaganda, whereas the use of property would probably not have the same impact as the use of the pursuit of happiness. He's also the first to really touch on the need for branches of government with not a lot of detail, but he does touch on those items. As you probably already know, Locke is going to have a huge impact on American political thought. And for more than 80 years after Locke actually publishes these views on human nature and the social contract, Jefferson is going to be the first to incorporate many of them into the Declaration of Independence. And it's not just going to be Jefferson. You're going to see a huge influence of Locke also in the creation of the new Constitution. All right, and it's very, very clear when you compare Locke's writings with a lot of Jefferson's work, particularly with the Declaration, you can see Locke's great influence. All right, another political philosopher we're going to be talking about today is Rousseau. In his 1743 work, The Social Contract, this Swiss political philosopher believed, a lot like Locke, that government should act for the good of all people. On the other hand, he also kind of aligned himself with Hobbes in the idea that in nature people languish. You know, the normal state of humans is kind of a tough, rough, and cruel world. Humans are always going to be focused on their survival and protecting themselves and their things, and really without a society or a government or a system, that humans would languish and really would not have fulfilling lives. Another big component here of a lot of his ideas are the concept of both freedom of religion and freedom of speech, which are also going to be integrated into the American system down the road. Montesquieu, French political thinker, is another political philosopher of the time period, very highly regarded in North America in the colonies prior to the Revolution. One political scientist who researched this found that many of the founding fathers referenced Montesquieu more than anyone else or any other political thinker of the time period than using actual quotes from the Bible. Big influence on Madison, which we'll see here in the next week or so. And he also created or set the groundwork for the idea of a separation of powers, where government could be set up to where no man needed to be afraid of one another. And you can see how that kind of idea of a kind of a dangerous state or a tenuous state of nature is followed through with here also with Montesquieu. Big focuses here of this foundation's videos on natural rights, and also on the protection of property and rights and the balance. Where do you find balance with maintaining those natural rights and having a government that's going to protect your property and rights, finding that happy medium between the two and being able to live a fruitful and successful life, and how government interacts in that relationship. Consent of the governed is another big topic that you need to draw out of this video. All right, the fact that people are giving over or giving their consent, they're okay for government to go ahead and rule and make decisions on their behalf. And then finally, the concept of the idea of breaking the contract. Locke was a big believer in revolution. You'll hear Jefferson talk about revolution probably not being a bad thing every once in a while. But when we talk about revolution and breaking contracts in modern political thought, we're talking about actual new elections. And that's the revolution that is brought on a regular basis in American politics. You know, we have terms on many of the positions in our elected government. All right. Thank you very much for watching this Foundations video. Make sure to fill out that Google form, and I will see you in class.